Heavy eyes, heavier sky. Some nights don't want you to sleep. They press in, whisper through the window. In Elias, the night whispered something else entirely. A pulse in the sky, steady, slow, like a thought just forming. People saw it. A few followed it. One never came back. If your eyes are tired, don't blink just yet. Hit like. Maybe subscribe. This one gets stranger the deeper you go. The call came in just after midnight. Elias, California. A town so small the dust outnumbered the people. Population: 1 diner, 2 drunks, and a post office that hadn't sent a letter since Truman was in office. It sat like a splinter between highways, just far enough from Bakersfield to be forgotten, but close enough to pick up radio static if the wind was right. The voice on the other end belonged to a deputy named Halford. Young, nervous. Too many sirs packed into a single breath. He said a man was missing. Clyde Buckner, a respected farmer. Said he vanished from his own field. No struggle. No note. Just gone. I was already halfway to sleep when the phone rang. But something in the kid's voice stuck with me. Not fear. Confusion. Like the truth didn't fit in his mouth. So I drove. The welcome sign was crooked. The street lamps hummed like they were holding secrets. I found the Buckner farm at the edge of town, past a broken fence and a stretch of road that hadn't seen pavement since the war. Deputy Halford was waiting, hat in hand like it might fly off with the truth. He was out checking the irrigation lines, Halford said. His daughter said she saw lights in the sky. Heard something, humming. I looked past him. The field was dead quiet. Rows of soil beneath a sky heavy with stars. Nothing moved. Not the wind. Not the crickets. Just that kind of stillness you only get before something bad happens. Her name was Lila. Maybe 14, maybe 15. Blonde hair, pulled back like she didn't care. She sat on the porch, wrapped in a quilt. Glass of milk sweating next to her on the step. She didn't drink it. She said it was a flying disc, Halford whispered. Said it came down in the field and took her dad. I raised an eyebrow. I know, he added, but we found a circle out there, burnt into the soil. No fire, no tracks, just a shape. I talked to the girl. She spoke like someone who'd been talked over her whole life. Flat, precise, no embellishment. She told me the lights came down, like rain, but backward. Her dad walked toward them like he was sleepwalking. She said he waved at her, then was gone. I tried to scream, she said, eyes on the sky, but the air turned solid, like it got stuck in my throat. I've heard a lot of stories, seen more than I care to remember, but that one made my fingers itch for a cigarette. I took a walk through the field with Halford. The scorch mark was real, 20 feet across, soil charred, dry as ash. No footprints, no dragging. Just a single trail of broken stalks leading to the center, then nothing. We found his boots, still standing, upright, like he'd melted right out of them. Halford stepped back. Jesus. Just Clyde here last night? Just him and the girl. His wife died a few years back. I nodded. The wind was picking up, dry and full of static. I crouched by the boots, looked around. The earth was wrong somehow. Too quiet. No insects, no moisture. Like something had sucked all the life out of it in one clean breath. That night, I checked into the Elias motel. The clerk didn't look up. Just slid me a key and mumbled something about breakfast if the egg showed up. Room 5 smelled like old soap and old lies. I left the window open. At 2:17 a.m., The lights came. No sound. Just a glow outside. Pale blue, like moonlight filtered through bone. I didn't go out. Just watched it crawl across the curtains like a warning. When it vanished, I finally slept. Next morning, the boots were gone. No sign they'd ever been there. The scorched circle, still there. But Halford wasn't saying much. Sheriff says it's a missing persons case, he muttered. No foul play. Without his boots? Halford didn't answer. I stopped by the diner around noon, ordered black coffee. The waitress looked like she used to be pretty but gave it up. She nodded toward a man in a sharp gray suit sitting by the window. Too tailored for the desert. Didn't eat. Didn't blink. Just stared at the horizon like he was waiting for something with teeth. When I got back to the motel, there was a manila folder on my pillow. No note. No envelope. Inside was a photo of Clyde Buckner at age 22, military haircut, Army ID, Fort Hood. Underneath it, a black and white aerial photo of the Buckner farm, dated 1947. In the photo, the same scorch mark. Same size. Same shape. 5 years before his daughter was born. And decades before the word UFO meant anything in Elias. I stared at that photo for a long time. 1947. Same farm, same field, same circle, burnt into the ground like a brand. 5 years too early. 5 years too impossible. There was no way Clyde Buckner had been standing out there back then. Not unless he aged in reverse or had a time machine buried under his barn. I tucked the folder into my coat and stepped outside. Elias didn't look any different. Same sun-baked road, same faded sky. But the weight of that file made everything feel heavier. The motel sign buzzed overhead like it was trying to drown out my thoughts. I went back to the Buckner place. Lila was sitting on the porch again, this time braiding the hair of a busted doll, with arms chewed to nubs. The glass of milk was still there. Different glass, maybe, but still untouched. The priest from the town church leaned against the fence. Tall, wiry man. Wore his collar like it was choking him. Said Lila hadn't cried. Hadn't spoken much either. She's seen something she can't file away, he said quietly. And that kind of thing, it don't go easy. I walked up and crouched beside her. Lila, I said, softer this time. Did your dad ever talk about the sky? She didn't look at me, just kept weaving tiny braids into the doll's hair. Her voice, when it came, was almost too light to catch. Only at night. Said he saw it before. Before last week. No, before I was born. That stopped me. I asked her what she meant. She said Clyde used to wake up sweating. Said he'd sit at the edge of the bed for hours. Wouldn't talk. Wouldn't blink. Sometimes he'd shake like a man waiting on an earthquake. Said there were pieces missing, she murmured, like parts of his life had been moved around. She paused, eyes flicking up to meet mine for the first time. He called them the missing years, said the sky borrowed them. Behind her, the priest crossed himself. I stood there for a while, watching her fingers move, slow and deliberate, like they were remembering something her mind wasn't ready to say. Later that day, I walked the field again, alone this time. Dust kicked at my boots, but the silence stayed. No birds, no insects, just wind and the faint crunch of scorched soil. The circle was still there. So perfect it looked drawn. But something had changed. The air felt thinner, like the world around it had been stretched too tight. I got close enough to feel the heat still clinging to the earth. And I saw it. A trail. Just one. A faint path of flattened weeds leading out from the edge of the circle toward the tree line. No prints, no boots, just pressure, like something had passed through without touching the ground. I followed it. It wound through the edge of the field and into a thin patch of woods, not far, maybe 40, 50 feet. But there, nestled between the roots of an old oak, I found something that didn't belong. A watch. Old, scratched, still ticking. Clyde's name etched into the back. The second hand stopped the moment I picked it up. I brought it to Halford. He didn't want to see it. Says missing persons. That's the sheriff's word. And what's yours? He rubbed the back of his neck. Looked toward the horizon. Mine's quiet. We both sat in silence a while. Then he asked something that caught me off guard. You ever heard of Project Grudge? The name stirred something. Old files. Declassified fragments from the 50s. Military investigations into unexplained aerial phenomena. Their words, not mine. A response to Roswell, but quieter. Deeper. Halford handed me a folder. Slim. Yellowed. Found it in my dad's attic, he said. He worked base security at Edwards back in the day. Retired early. Said Elias was mentioned. I flipped it open. Inside were 3 things. A map of the Central Valley with Elias circled in red. A transcript of a witness interview from 1949 describing discs of light over a cornfield. And a blurred photograph of a man standing in a field with a large, dark shape hovering above him. I didn't recognize the man until I flipped it over. C. Buckner, 1949. The photo wasn't a fake. I'd seen enough doctored files to spot one. This was real. Old school paper. Watermarked. Filed. That meant Clyde had been seen or involved. Years before Lila was even born. And whatever happened out there, whatever took him, wasn't the first time it came calling. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched the sky from the motel window, waited for the light. It came at 2:14 a.m., 3 minutes earlier than the night before. A soft pulse above the hills, not bright, not flashing, just a steady glow, like something thinking. It hovered, shifted, then blinked out like it had never been there. I left the room and walked down the road toward the Buckner farm. Everything was quiet, but as I reached the edge of the field, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A figure, standing in the middle of the scorch mark, arms at its sides, face turned toward the sky. I didn't go back to sleep. I sat in the motel armchair till dawn, hands wrapped around a cup of cold coffee, listening to the buzz of the neon vacancy sign sputtering outside my window. The sun came up pale and slow, like it didn't want to see what had happened the night before. By the time I walked to the station, Halford was already at his desk, eyes red-rimmed, a pile of untouched paperwork in front of him. You saw it, didn't you? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, there's something in that field. I nodded. Something watching. He slid a small object across the desk. A bullet. Bent nearly in half. Found that about 30 feet from the circle, embedded in a rock. Military grade. Like it hit something that wasn't there. You think someone fired at it? He shrugged. Or tried to. That's when we heard the phone ring. He picked it up, listened, then looked at me with something like fear leaking through his features. Town diner, he said. You better come. The diner was nearly empty when I got there, save for the cook in back and a waitress smoking out front. The booth near the window, Same one I'd seen the man in the sharp gray suit sitting at the day before, was empty. But the table wasn't. A single sheet of paper sat in the center. Typed, not handwritten. Buckner's missing years, 1947 to 1949. Below the header were dates, locations, military terms I didn't recognize. Operation Foldback. Clearance 8H. Subject relocated for debrief. Every word screamed classified, and none of it belonged in a dusty roadside diner. How did this get here? I asked the waitress. She shrugged. Wasn't there when I locked up last night. Anyone come in this morning? No one but you. I took the page, folded it once, didn't say goodbye. Back at the motel, I opened the manila folder again, spread the contents across the bedspread, the aerial photo, Clyde's Army ID, the old watch, and now this new page, as if someone was assembling the pieces for me, like I was being guided, breadcrumb by breadcrumb. I didn't like that. So I decided to go straight to the source. I drove out past the field to a place the locals called Elias Ridge. Just a patch of dried-out hills and a rusted radio tower that hadn't worked in decades. But according to one of the reports, the ridge had been used during a surveillance exercise in 1948, an observation point. I found the path up. Took 20 minutes on foot. Crows circled overhead, moving too slow to be real. The air changed near the top. Static in my ears. Taste of metal on my tongue. And that's when I saw the hole. Not a crater. A tunnel. Perfectly circular. Burned into the earth. Just wide enough for a man to crawl through. It hadn't been there long. The edges still smoldered. Dirt fused into glass. I knelt beside it. Felt the heat. Heard something faint. Almost mechanical. Like breathing. I didn't go in. Not then. I marked it on my map, walked back to the car, and drove into town with gravel crunching under my tires like bones. Back at the church, Lila was there again. Same steps. Different doll. She looked up before I said a word. He's not dead, she said. I sat beside her. What makes you say that? She didn't answer at first. Just toyed with the doll's dress, pulling the frayed hem through her fingers like a rosary. He came to my window last night. I froze. Your father? She nodded. But he wasn't him. She looked at me then, and there was something different behind her eyes. Less fear. More knowledge. What did he say? He said they're showing him things. Teaching him about what we forgot. Who's they? She didn't reply. Just looked up at the sky like the answer might drift down any second. I pressed. Did he say where he was? No, she said. But he's not alone. The priest stepped out from the chapel door, motioned that he needed to speak with me. I excused myself, walked up. He pulled me close. I don't know what's happening here, he whispered. But I think someone does. He handed me a small note, torn from a larger page, written in pencil. Ask Eleanor Rush. Who's Eleanor? I asked. Used to run the county records office, retired years ago. Lives up on Mill Creek Road. If anyone remembers what this town was built on, it's her. By the time I found Eleanor's place, the sun was starting to lean westward. Small cottage. Overgrown yard. She met me at the screen door with eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. I was wondering when someone had come, she said. We sat at her kitchen table. She brewed tea she didn't drink. And for the first time since I got to Elias, someone told me the whole truth. Or at least a version of it. There were 2 Buckners, she said. Clyde had a brother, William. Went missing in '47 after an accident out near Ridge 6. That's what the Army called it back then. I leaned forward. What kind of accident? They said a weather balloon, but no one believed that. She opened a box. Inside was a photo, black and white, slightly curled at the corners. 2 boys, twins. One of them was definitely Clyde. People think time moves in one direction, she said. But out here, I've seen it stutter. What happened to William? They never found him, not a body, not a bone. But a year later, Clyde started showing signs. What kind of signs? She just stared at me, then whispered, "He remembered things William knew." I left Eleanor Rush's cottage with more questions than answers, and a headache like a low hum behind my eyes. The photo of the Buckner twins burned a hole in my pocket. Clyde and William. 2 boys in matching overalls, barefoot in the dirt. And now only one still walking the timeline, maybe. The sun had dipped behind the hills by the time I got back to the motel. I didn't turn the lights on. Just sat in the dark. Let the glow of the neon sign leak through the curtains. I laid the photo beside the file on the bed, next to the watch, the transcript, the scorched aerial image, like puzzle pieces from different boxes, all trying to make one ugly picture. Then the knock came. 3 soft raps. I opened the door, hand hovering near the revolver I kept in my coat. It was Halford. He looked pale, sweat damp, like he'd run the whole way from the station. "You need to come with me," he said. 10 minutes later, we stood at the edge of the Buckner field again. But this time, it wasn't empty. A second scorch mark had appeared, identical to the first, and standing in the middle of it was Clyde. Alive, eyes closed, mouth slightly open, arms slack at his sides like he'd never left. "Don't go near him," I told Halford. We approached slowly, boots crunching over dried grass and singed earth. The air felt thin again, almost wrong, like breathing through cotton. Clyde didn't move. I circled around him, checked for injuries. No burns, no wounds. Just a waxy stillness, like he'd been carved and left to bake under the stars. "Clyde?" I said quietly. His eyes snapped open. I flinched. They were blue, same as before, but deeper, fuller, like looking through water into another room. He blinked at me, slowly, like the concept of blinking itself was new. Then he whispered something, not to me, to the sky. A string of sounds, not words, not quite. Clicks, breath, like trying to pronounce static. Then he collapsed. We caught him before he hit the dirt. In the sheriff's office, Clyde said nothing, just stared at the wall. Doc Cleary looked him over and found nothing wrong. Vitals normal, no signs of exposure or dehydration. But he hadn't eaten, not since returning, and wouldn't speak, until Lila walked in. He looked up then, smiled, and said, "I missed your whole life." Everyone froze. She walked to him, slow, cautious. He didn't reach for her, didn't try to explain, just kept talking in a low, steady tone. They showed me everything, the sun at the center, the gap in the middle, the real shape of time. Tears ran down her cheeks. "But you weren't there," he said. "I asked them to take me back. They said no. So I learned their language. I gave them what they wanted." "What did they want?" I asked. He looked at me now, and this time, his voice changed, deeper, resonant, like something was echoing through him. "They wanted a witness. A witness, not a prisoner, not a victim, someone to carry a message." He stood slowly, walked to the window, stared out at the night. "They'll be back, not for me, for what's next." We didn't stop him when he walked out. Didn't know how. He vanished down the road like he'd never been gone. That night, Elias was silent, Even the wind seemed afraid, but I didn't sleep. At 2:12 a.m., earlier again, the lights came. Brighter this time. Not a glow. A shape. Geometric. Symmetrical. Like architecture from a fever dream, hanging in the sky with no noise, no logic. Then came the hum. Low, steady. Not mechanical, organic. Felt like it came from inside your chest, not outside. I walked outside. Halford was already there. We stood in the middle of the road, watching the light descend. No one else in town stirred. Just us. And then the air shifted. Something walked between us. We didn't see it, but the ground bent under its weight, and where it passed, the road shimmered. Just a little. Like heat off asphalt. It turned once. I swear I saw an eye. One eye. Black and bottomless, and I remembered, something I'd never seen, something buried. It passed, and the light faded. Next morning, Clyde was gone again. Lila didn't cry. She just sat on the porch with her glass of milk and watched the sunrise. And on the table in the sheriff's office, a new photo, an aerial shot. This time, the scorch mark wasn't on the Buckner field. It was over the town, dead center, burned into the middle of Elias, like a message or a countdown. I left that morning, didn't tell anyone, didn't leave a note. Just drove out with tired eyes and a feeling in my gut like I'd stolen a piece of someone else's dream. Sometimes I still wake up at 2:14 a.m., sometimes earlier. And sometimes, when I'm really unlucky, I dream in a language I don't speak, a shape I can't describe, and a voice that sounds like mine, but older, saying things no human should ever know.